Looking live once again at Tokyo on this day, 100 days out from the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Olympic Games, July the 23rd, the athletes will parade into that National Olympic Stadium. The Games were delayed by a year. You certainly heard that story by now, delayed by the pandemic, and there are still plenty of questions about whether they will go ahead, whether they should go ahead. What are the safety protocols? What is the level of local support? We're going to talk about all of that over the course of this morning, even as the countdown ceremonies continue. There was a big moment, the unveiling of the official mascots for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And they are named, one each, obviously. Mirai Toa, the mascot for the Olympics. That means future and eternity. And Samayati, which is the Paralympic mascot, that's a type of cherry tree. So both of these characters selected by elementary school children, that was a first in Games history, the first of what is likely to be many firsts attached to these Olympic Games like none other. CBC Sports' Devin Haru is going to be a big part of our coverage team, and he is with me this morning. We have so many things to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for coming in, Devin. What do you think these games are even going to look like?
I mean, listen, we get the announcement of the mascots. It means this is getting real, doesn't it, Heather? Good morning to you. For all the waiting, for all the uncertainty, wondering if these games would go ahead 100 days out. And so we now have that tangible goal that athletes crave, and thousands of athletes around the world are waking up this morning feeling perhaps more optimistic than ever before that these games are going ahead. But listen, there are still a lot of unanswered questions. Here's what we know right now. Heather, you said it. These games are going to be very different. In fact, the Canadian Olympic Committee telling all Canadian athletes, wrap your head around the fact that this isn't going to be what you expect it to be. Athletes arriving no earlier than 5 days before their events. They have to get out of the Olympic Village within 48 hours of competing. At this point, we know that vaccinations are not mandatory, but the IOC would like athletes, officials, media to be vaccinated before going to Tokyo. We know that there are playbooks that are being adapted and changed every day to fit the ever-changing circumstances. Of course, this is all in the backdrop of a global pandemic. 15,400 athletes for the Olympics and Paralympics from more than 200 nations, Heather. So it is going to be a spectacle. Faster, higher, stronger, that Olympic motto, and just getting to the finish line this time around.
Faster, higher, stronger, safer. I mean, this is the overarching word for all of these things. And if you think back to the original 2020, Devin, and remember the Canadian Olympic Committee's decision to withdraw the team from Canada from the Olympic competition would not have been ethical, was the decision to send a team over, given the world was in a global health crisis. So there are still so many concerns about the pandemic. Do we know for sure, is Canada going? Where do we stand?
Well, and isn't that the question in all of this? What has changed over the last 13 months? We put that question to David Shoemaker, the head of the Canadian Olympic Committee, and he says, listen, we know so much more now than we did 13 months ago when we made that bold stance saying we would not go if the games went ahead. They say they have a clearer picture, Heather, of how this virus spreads, how to protect the athletes. Team Canada is going. Let's be very clear about that. And what we know is that this might be the largest team Canada has ever sent outside of the 1976 Montreal Olympics. But athletes are scrambling. Many of them still haven't even qualified. Many of them have to travel overseas to compete in events. And many of them, Heather, might not even get the chance, the proper chance, the safe chance to qualify. So yes, we are 100 days away from these Olympics. But there are so many things that have to go right before that opening ceremony. And Heather, many of the Canadian athletes telling me we're going to embrace it. Marnie McBean, chef de mission, says it's not called an Olympic-sized task for no reason at all. They're ready to stare it down. They're ready to accept that this is going to be unlike any other Olympics. But my goodness, what a Herculean Olympic-sized task this is going to be just to get to the games.
You are so right, Devin. Listen, what do we want to talk? All morning you're with us, and we have a lot of things to talk about. Will you introduce us to the new sports people are going to see? Can we talk about that at some point this morning?
No question. Surfing, skateboard, we'll get into it.
Okay, we'll get into that. The athletes, because online there is a piece that Devin's put to introduce you to some of the athletes on Team Canada. We'll talk much more about that here on CBC News Network.